Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Today, we are heading somewhere much warmer than South Dakota, and that is down south with good friend, Mr. Brian Evans from Seaguar. How is it going down there? You're in Georgia, I believe, right?
That is correct, Georgia. Yeah, it's going good. We're just talking about the weather a little bit, and it's 40 degrees, and the wind is blowing, but nothing like what you've got.
No, yeah, we're a balmy 1 degree up here right now. But like I was telling you, hey, we're making ice, and that's good because it's ice fishing season up north. But Seaguar's got us covered, obviously, from one end to the other. But as we dive into the Seaguar stuff, I want to let everybody just know a little bit more about you, about Seaguar, a little history on it, just what's your role with Seaguar, how long you've been there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I've been with Seaguar a little over 10 years now. I work with the marketing team with Seaguar, and a little bit of history about the company. We invented fluorocarbon fishing line back in 1971. So that was over 50 years ago we invented this product. And since then, it's taken leaps and bounds and just drastically changed how people fish and, their catch. Because, with fluorocarbon line, obviously you get the benefit that it's virtually invisible underwater. Much more abrasion resistant and much more sensitive. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Plus it lasts longer than traditional nylon fishing lines. So it helps out a lot for anglers to either use it as their main line or in conjunction with braided line. Obviously with using braided line, you get added sensitivity and adding casting distance. But then when you use it, fluorocarbon leader material with it, then you get that invisibility and abrasion resistant benefits too.
Yeah, it's, I don't think there's anybody out there who doesn't have an arsenal of fluoro in their boat or, like you said, tied up as your main line. It's in the walleye world. There's still quite a few guys using it as main line, especially in the like jig and wraps and stuff like that, just because we're giving it a different action versus, the braid. Not a whole lot of monofilament out there at all. I haven't owned any for years, maybe on a trolling rod, for a plater board on, for Great Lakes. But even that is pretty much just gone to fluorocarbon. Some of that is strictly for stretch purposes.
Exactly.
Going to that mono for stretch when you're fighting a 10-pounder at 2 or 3 mile an hour on a crankbait with 150 feet, 200 feet of line out.
Yeah, people like nylon monofilament, because it's stretch and it's also buoyant. So, if you're fishing an application like top water, some people prefer monofilament or, maybe a spy bait or balsa wood crankbaits. Sometimes when people are trying to get very, very shallow, there still is a little bit of a need for monofilament.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions out. I jig and pitch jigs and throw plastics all early spring and the water's cold. And I was like, you got to slow it down. I said, if ever, and I maybe have one spool that I can swap out on a reel. That's an old reel, but I don't think I've even touched it last couple of years. I'm like, that's the only time I'm going to put a mono on to help that bait slow down just a little bit. But really, I just end up tying instead of like a 3 or 4 foot, I'll go 6, 7 foot, gold label leader. And
that works. That's perfect.
And I just give it a little bit more fluoro on there, and it doesn't fall quite as fast as the braid. And I'm fishing river current, so I need to cut through that stuff anyway. But you don't see a lot of it out there. You see fluoro everywhere. The bass guys are big. That's it. Full spools. I talked to Mark Daniels, and it's just
tub of life.
Exactly. I'm like, man, you got to spool up a lot of that stuff, and the shelf life you said on it. This stuff, the mono stuff. I put real covers on, and then we keep them in our rod lockers, but not everybody has that. Sun just beats the crap out of stuff, but it doesn't. Fluorocarbon is just so much more resistant to that. Why is it? What's in it that just makes it last longer?
The actual material is PVDF. And it's resistant to UV. It is also chemically resistant and impervious, so it's not going to absorb water. So not only does sunlight not affect it, but if you put anything like sunscreen on your hands or you fill your truck up with gas on the way to the ramp and you get
Yeah.
some fuel on your hands and, start touching your reel. That's not going to damage it. So that's some of the reasons why it lasts so much longer than regular fishing line.
There's so many little things about the stuff like that nobody just thinks about. And I was in Shields over the weekend for an ice fest and moving, selling some of the ice line. I think this is one of the old labels, but by the way, they were out. This was the last. This isn't the last. They sold their last 8-pound spool of Seaguar ice there. But I looked at the guy and that's what he wanted. And they only had one left. And he's like, well, I want 3 or 4 of them. So I think he went to just up or down a test that they had more.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the sales reps was like, just use this stuff over here. I'm like, I just looked up and said, this is the number one thing that connects you to your fish. And I said, this is it. Without the proper line, I'm like, nothing else really matters. And he was like, light bulb. I'm like, yeah, we don't talk about it. This is literally the one thing that connects you to the fish. Literally. That figuratively, literally, it's the line. Yeah. Like, you might want to take a little bit more consideration and thought about it. And we're talking, ice fish and abrasion resistance, huge.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're rubbing on a hole or, just there's
jigging up and down.
Yeah, just a numerous amount of things, and short rods and your Willards and side-by-sides are in buckets, and you got, your jigs are in there and they're bumping all the other lines. Abrasion resistance is, it's pretty important. Don't cut your corners, people. Don't try to save a few pennies here. And then, but the prices, you're just as competitive as anybody else with it. So,
yeah. You alluded to the amount of fluorocarbon out in the marketplace. And, something that I don't think a lot of anglers realize is not only did we invent fluorocarbon fishing line, but we are the only company who makes the raw material designed for fishing products. We're the only manufacturer that can manufacture the raw material and extrude it into fishing line. Therefore, we can change the properties of it for attributes that an angler may want. If it's a casting line, we can make it more supple. If it's a leader line, maybe we want better knot strength, better impact strength. That's something that other manufacturers can't do. Right. They have to rely on outsourcing that raw PVDF material from somewhere else. Therefore, they have no control over what they get. So that's one of the big things that sets us apart. And that also allows us to have all these different products. With mainline fluorocarbon, we've got, Basex, Red Label, Invisex, Abrasex, Tatsu. And then you look at our leader materials and, we've got the new Pounce Bass leader. We've got STS. We've got Pink Label, Blue Label, Premier, Gold Label. We've got all different types of materials out there depending on the particular angler's needs and, their budget too, because, in today's world, we have to be mindful of what people can spend. How much money do they have that they can spend or willing to spend on fishing products? And we want to offer the best product possible at that price point.
Yeah, you've come up with, I believe, what was it, like Basex and a couple others last year that are that little bit more cost-friendly friend for a person, kind of introductory line if you're thinking about it, or a Red Label, right? I believe would be like, hey, you want to try it out? Here's a little cheaper price point to get in, and the reality is once you guys are using it, you're going to love it and be like, all right, I get it. I totally understand it now.
And just like anything, you could go buy a fishing rod for $50 or you could go buy one for $500, and there's going to be benefits or performance capabilities that make it worth what it is. So as you step up in the product line, you're definitely going to get a better product that's going to perform better in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, on the ice side, which I noticed over this weekend at the Ice Fest thing, is ice fishing, it's camaraderie type sport, but a lot of guys are just buying $30, $50 combos, right? Mm-hmm. They don't come with the line. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, but the one thing that connects you to the fish, I'm like, you bought the cheaper rod and reel, and it's probably going to do you just fine with what you're doing. You're just sitting over a hole or you're dead sticking. I'm like, but spend the $6 to $8 or $7.99 or whatever it was. I think it was $8, 20% off on your line, and you're set. That's going to last you, all winter, if not 2 or 3 winters, whatever the case may be. And they're like, oh, that makes complete sense, and no problem spending that on a spool line that
Mm-hmm.
but they're like, well, I'm going to probably break my rod, or the kid's going to step on it, or it's going to, when it's 1 degree outside, things tend to break. I'm like, but your line don't. And
Yep.
you
Yep.
can
And
move
it's not
that
going
from
to
one.
freeze up either.
Right. You can move that one spool. That's, I am switching. I've been running the ISEX, but I have, uh, some really thin smackdown on some.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving it all over to floral, but I'm thinking of putting this on for ice. I think that's going to work really good on ice. I was going to chit chat with Troy Peterson about it and see if he's tried it yet. But so some of those braids are going to absorb a little water, and then
Mm-hmm.
they want to freeze. But this PEX8 stuff is amazing, and the freaking diameter is so small. There's not much line to absorb any water, so I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it should work good.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, honestly, because ice is just getting made right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't heard any reports about using that new PEX8 braid that you just showed. But outside of the ice fishing world, the anglers that have been using that absolutely love it because it is so thin and so smooth. It just casts incredible. And I know so many people, when they talk about braid, they talk about castability. The first time I tried that out is when we were testing it for the U.S. market, because it's designed for Japanese anglers. Right. They're accustomed to it. The way they fish and the way we fish are two different things.
Their fisheries, why it was created. I can't remember, one of your pro staff from Japan was telling me all about it and telling me all about their fisheries and why he has to use this due to the pressure on the fisheries. And I was like, oh man, that makes total sense. I had no idea that's what the market was like over there.
Yeah, it is incredible. And the first time I went to cast that, I just did like a sidearm cast. I had it spooled up on a spinning reel. Didn't really put a lot of energy into it or effort into it. And I was like, wow. Oh. Like that was my first impression was, oh my God, wow, this stuff cast like nothing else. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is 18-pound that I got, because that's it. Everything else is already gone. But it's like a 2-pound diameter. I think it's 18-pound good. I'm like, yeah, I said it. And I was like, oh my Lord, I expected it to be a little bit thicker, but no. And then I was a little like, all right, sometimes with these super thin diameters, your knots can slip on you. Mm-hmm. I tend to super glue them, but I put a 10-pound gold label leader on it. I've never had zero issues. I make the tag in a little longer, pull it, cut it, and leave maybe a 1/4 inch, but I haven't had absolutely zero issues. But you're right. I'm fusing it on a forward-facing sonar and just flipping, like a Ned rig or something, and that thing's, I set that at like 80 feet, and it's like, ooh, but that was easy. 80 feet's not that far, but when you flip it, you're like, it just flies off that spool. Castability, and it didn't compromise. You didn't lose any strength or nothing with it.
No. And the thing to pay attention to is that diameter. And I feel like the core sizes, the key sizes people are going to like are going to be the 18, 21, and 24-pound test. We do offer a 16 and a 12, but like you were talking about the knots, you just have to be extra careful with it. Leave the tag in a little bit longer, maybe put a drop of fishing glue, super glue on there just to secure it, because that material gets so thin, it's like a thread.
No.
And then it's so slick that you can just slide it through, and, you don't want that to happen when you're fishing.
No, it is. Yeah, I don't know if walleye guys are always like, I'm only using 4-pound, back in the day mono, and I don't ever use anything hardly under a 10, an 8, at the lightest, but it's usually a 10-pound smackdown, or this 18, and I don't feel any reason to really ever go any lighter because the diameter's so thin. And if you're a river rat like me, thinner diameter, the better to cut current and get those baits down. It just makes nothing but all the sense in the world.
And talking about diameter, when you start looking at fishing line across the board, diameters fluctuate with the pound test. There's no consistency in the U.S. market. So if you're talking about our 10-pound smackdown, that could be equivalent to somebody else's 8-pound or 6-pound, or 15 or 20 pounds. So it's really important for anglers out there when they're looking at a fishing line to look at the pound test and the line diameter to make sure that you're getting what you want.
Yeah, because your 10-pound and somebody else's are not the same. I always tell them that with my gold label leaders. I'm like,
Exactly.
like an 8 or 10. I said, but if you're, I say you can go a size up on a Seaguar versus what you were currently using. I said, because the diameter is going to be smaller.
Yeah.
And I think almost side by side, almost on every one of your lines, your diameters are smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that PEX8, one of our pros, he prefers the 33-pound PEX8 because he's like, it's thinner than the 15-pound Smackdown that I've been used to using. So why don't I get the same diameter or smaller and get more braking strength. So, that's how he's looking at it.
Yeah, I'm looking at that as more broad, rod breaking strength though. Then I'm, and you guys to be bass guys, they're setting hooks on those trees, and it's like I don't know how many, Trey McKinney St. Croix get broken when he's flipping them fishing. I'm like, quit high sticking that and breaking rods on TV, Trey. But I mean, hey, they're 5-6 pounders, and that's gonna happen. But if you're breaking the line, these things they're breaking the freaking rods. Smackdown. I mean, this stuff moved a lot of them out here. I got the stores are carrying more of it now, but that stuff. I mean, the PEX8 it's new, it's a world of its own, and moving to more and more of this stuff. But this Smackdown is every client that gets in. It casts great just because the tubular, form on it. Every single one of them is like, what kind of line is this? And I tell them, like, oh, okay. And they're like, man, I really like it. I'm like, yeah, and I used it for quite a while and immediately noticed the castability of it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have people say that it casts about 10 to 15% better than, other braids. We don't have any scientific data to support that claim. But that's what, our pro staff has told us, which is very important bass fishing. And then the guys that are saltwater fishing with it, inshore flats fishing, they got to be able to cast a long way. So very important to them. And, we offer that in a high vis flash green and then a more stealthy low vis stealth gray. We initially launched it in 150 yard spools, but because of demand, we do offer it in a larger 300 yard spool as well.
Yeah, and I mean 150 is usually enough for most spinning reels, but like you said, those inshore guys are using 3000 series, and they're going to want those big ones. And the bad thing about braid, but good thing, it's bad on your end on the sell side of it is, I'm like, well, when you're respooling, you just take it off one and spool it back to the other, and then all the fresh line, is out with the high vis color after it, if it ever fades a little bit. But the stealth gray, I can sometimes see it better, in the low light conditions, or it depends on your polarized sunglasses or whatever. But pretty much have high vis on just about everything nowadays, except the vertical jigging rods, and then pull a lot of crankbaits on this stuff.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because we troll the river, and once again, that thinner diameter, they get those crankbaits down. When we're going into 2 mile an hour current through weeds that are floating on the surface, sometimes you're ripping it. Of course, the Tactex comes in great, for that too. But yeah, it's fishing real deep. Sometimes we'll troll over trees. I mean, just all sorts of stuff. But then I use the 15 or 20 pound. I've used the Tactex on, fishing real deep into trees just because 20 pound plus and the strength on it. And I'm just going to lose a $7 lure versus a half a spool of line. So, that, or even the basic, something that's a little cost friendly, because that's usually going to get put on and then taken off and right away when I go back shallower. But the Smackdown stuff trolls phenomenal, and then you can really see like little salmon hornets or flicker shads. I mean, the action on it, you're not losing any. It's great. So,
that's good.
And you don't like typical braids. You pick them up, you feel it. You just know it's a braid. You can feel it. You don't get that with the Smackdown. It's just it feels paper thin, not quite as thin as the PX8, obviously, but it's just super thin, and it's an 8-strand braid, right? Two formed together, but it doesn't cut through the spool like when you get snagged up like lots of other ones do.
Yeah, it's woven really tight, so it's very round in shape, so it prevents a lot of that.
Yeah, because I don't know how many times, like in that case, you're using a big, round conventional line counter type reel, and
Mm-hmm.
when you get snagged up and you're trolling at 3 mile an hour, it's
It gets
that
bound up in there.
yeah, it wants to cut through it,
Yeah,
and I haven't had that happen with this stuff yet.
that's
So
good.
that is good. I mean, it's maybe bound to happen someday. I don't know, but it hasn't happened, and that usually sucks because then you're like, oh, it's way, and it breaks, and you're like, you
Can't
got to
get it
pull out.
out.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
digging out, and then you trash all of it. You're pulling out 100 feet of line to get to the end of it, and that sucks. But I have not had any of that happen with that, so that is awesome. I'm looking forward to PX8. I'm gonna, so these are dropped at 100. These have come in different sizes, I think, don't they? 200
Yeah. Well,
meters.
that is a 165 yard spool. Keep in mind that was developed for the Japanese
Yeah,
market.
it's a lot of. I don't.
And
My Japanese isn't good. I can't. What's that
neither is
guy's name?
mine.
He read all this
Taku.
too. Taku told me all about this. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
all right. Unfortunately, I forgot the Japanese language he was teaching me. But
Yeah, so that was developed for the Japanese market, so it conforms to what those anglers are used to in their culture. So it's going to be, it's 165 yards here in the United States, and they also go by a Japanese GOU, which is the equivalent to our pound test.
oh,
So
okay.
that packaging is the exact same as what is sold in Japan. However, we convert pound test in yards on there so that the
Yeah.
U.S. angler understands it.
Yeah, this
So
one's
we add a
219
label.
yards,
Mhm.
0.165 millimeters in diameter. That's
That's
crazy.
18 pound.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
nuts. When you look at a 20-pound Tactex is 0.01. So, I mean, the diameters are just small. Period. That's
Yeah.
just how it is.
I've actually got a reel
Oh, there you go.
here spooled up with it that I've taken to Canada, and I've taken it fishing here, locally. I've also taken it to Louisiana. So I forget how many different species of fish that I've caught on this 21 pound test, but I think it's double digits already. And, you can see that it hasn't faded anything. It still looks good. It still performs good. And I've been using this all year.
And you've been smacking giant redfish on it, I'm sure. So,
Oh, yeah. Got a 42-inch red last trip.
nothing beats that.
No,
stuff.
I'm sorry. 42. Yeah.
42. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And it's pink, but it's got that green or that high vis green every meter or something like that on it,
Mhm.
I think. So in case you're a counter, I guess I'm pitching. I don't look at that so much, but I know there's a few lines out there that have that different transitions, and guys comes in handy for vertical jigging or whatever the case is. You have an idea what you got out there, but
And those that are sight fishing, it also helps because you got two variations of color.
Yeah.
It's not just one uniform color all the way down. You've got, a pink that's visible and a green that's visible, and they contrast. So, it makes it very easy to watch your line. And, if you want something that's a little bit less subtle, then, you could tie it directly to the pink. But, I'm using fluorocarbon, so it doesn't matter in any way.
Nope, not at all. I always say that people in seminars for years would ask, when I said, hey, jigging, we're pitching jigs, we're using high vis lines so you can see that line. So many times you're going to see it twitch or pop,
Yeah.
even before you fill it. They're like, well, aren't you afraid the fish are going to see it? Well, I always got a fluorocarbon leader, but prior to, the big craze on fluorocarbon leaders are tied direct. And I was like, the fish swim into gill nets, man. I don't think they're super concerned, but there definitely is times there, it's a player, but I said, I don't know. I 100% of the time have a fluorocarbon leader tied on to everything. I mean, even if I'm cranking, with the braid trolling in dirty water, I said it still has a fluorocarbon leader on it.
Yeah. My thought is, why wouldn't you use a fluorocarbon leader to give yourself the advantage to catch more fish or potentially catch bigger fish? You use that analogy about fish swimming in the gill nets. Yeah, that happens. And, can't really explain that. But I've also heard countless times where a guy's been fishing with his buddy. His buddy was using fluorocarbon and he wasn't, and was getting fished, outfished 7-1.
Yep.
And it's like, it's real. I've heard stories of, people up in Alaska, fishing that deep water. Like, there's no need to use fluorocarbon, but then they start using fluorocarbon, yet they start catching bigger and better fish. And the surface of the water, could be muddy. It could be murky, but then you could go down 3 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet where you're fishing and it can be green and clear. You just never know. So my philosophy is, why wouldn't you want that advantage?
Yep. That's exactly what I tell everybody. I'm like, just why not? I got it. Let's put it on. I guarantee it doesn't prevent them from biting.
Yeah.
Someone says, about scent, spraying something on your crankbait. I'm like, I said, they're not going to not eat it because it smells like a fish. When you're throwing a plastic out there, I'm like, a scented bait's a scented bait. I guarantee you, you're not going to catch less fish because of it. Instead, you may catch a few more. Exactly. How many times if another guy's using something different and you're 3-1, 5, 7-1, and it's like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, you're not doing what I told you to do. You're not using the same thing, he kept breaking off, and now he's down to this much leader, and you're at 4 or 6 foot. And I'm like, here, we got to cut this and tie you back on. A lot of it is just the presentation of the bait on it's different. It could be falling slower or moving one way or the other and what have you. I'm like, why not? I use, like I said, 100% of the time as a guide on the river. Zebra mussels have gotten thicker and thicker and thicker everywhere. And even this year, I went from using 15 on my lead core when we're trolling as a leader to 20 pound, because there's so many zebra mussels, and we're typically fishing bottom or near bottom, or you're going to want to bump bottom. But anytime you roll over a tree or any piece of structure, zebra mussels are on that thing, and they're just like little razor blades.
Yes, they are.
And they're just nicking and nicking and nicking away. And I don't know how many fish they got near the boat. And if you didn't check it, every day, by at least at the end of the day, at least a minimum once a day, and then cut a couple of, 6 inches off and retie, because it was usually the bottom, couple feet that had some nicks on it. You would get right near the boat, and maybe it's a big pike or a big walleye, and it would start to thrash and it would break. And I'm like, it's because damn zebra mussels were, trashing that line over the last 6 hours. I don't care what you got, after you start chopping it up enough, it's going to break. We went to 20 pound this year, and that didn't happen one single time.
Oh, that's good.
Yep, not once. My other guy switched to 20, and I'm like, all right, let me go to 20, and not once. And after, maybe half a dozen times last year, and I was like, damn it, some zebra mussels.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, I'm like, let's just go 20. Didn't catch any less fish. Didn't make any difference on that, but we lost 0 fish, because of it. But same deal. Checked it at the end of the day, and I would say it probably had to even, cut a foot of line off half as many times, just from going from a 15 to a 20. So, and zebra mussels are a deal basically everywhere you go now. I know trolling up on the Great Lakes, Green Bay is loaded with them, and that's a place to just go 100% fluorocarbon, because if you're rolling over rocks, it seems kind of silly to put a fluorocarbon leader on your mono if you're pulling boards or whatever. I'm like, just go 100% fluoro, because it can be 50, 60 feet up your line when you roll over, a rock, and those things are just absolutely covered them, and they're sharp. And it's, you're totally going to lose fish if your line is all nicked up, period.
Yep. For sure.
Tatsu, I don't think I have any of that in here. That one came out, a couple, 3 years ago?
No, it's
that's longer than that, I guess.
Yeah. Probably like 15 years ago.
Oh, is it that long? Okay.
Yeah. It's been out for quite some time.
And that one's kind of the top dog in the line.
That is a mainline fluorocarbon and top dog. I say that it's in a league of its own because it's unlike anything in the marketplace. It's unlike anything else in the marketplace because it features double structure fluorocarbon, meaning we take 2 custom fluorocarbon resins and extrude it into a single piece of material. So you get the best of both worlds. You get something that's castability, the strength, the suppleness, everything about it is just phenomenal. That is an exclusive process that only Seaguar can do. No other fishing line manufacturer can do that. It's not a copolymer line where it's a piece of line with a coating over it. It's actually 2 resins extruded as one. You talk to anybody that's used it, and, other than the price, they love it. It comes from 4 pound to 25 pound test. So it's geared, for primarily for bass anglers, but there are guys that will use it crappie fishing, guys that will use it walleye fishing. But the performance of it is it's unmatched. It's remarkable.
I used it. I spooled up with it, full spools, That was mainline in Ottertail for a championship a few years ago. Because we're rigging crick chubs.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm just long lining this stuff. But I want it. It's Minnesota. It's crick chubs, rigging fish in one rod. It's like a super sensitive. You can't have a colored hook. They won't touch it. It's got to be bronze. All these things. I'm like, I'm just going 8-pound tattoo and pulling it back behind the boat. And yep, it definitely made a difference. That was, I think, a year ahead. Limits in every tournament, and
Yeah.
it was good. And then I was talking to Jay Shakir a few years ago, right after he won and his first Bass Elite Series, I think St. Clair, when he had the 100-some pounds, and he's like, yeah, he's like, that you're 100%. He's like, that's what I had spooled on. And those guys now with the forward facing and the smallmouth fishing, they're like tattoo. That's what they're going to. I'm like, yeah, it's hard to beat, man. Like I said,
it is.
You got to pay a little bit more for it, but your return on investment is pretty good.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It is good stuff. I like it a lot. So if folks, you're out there and you see the Seaguar ice, it's a different label. It's one of the older ones. It's basically got the gold label color one with a little camouflage pattern on it now, I believe. But Northern Anglers, all the box stores are carrying that now up here. You'll love it. Told the guy the other day, I said, it doesn't blow off your spool. I'm like, you can drop it. It's not going to freeze on you. Like you said, it's just the water can't penetrate the stuff with the chemicals you got on it. I think during COVID, the shelves were full of Seaguar because, like you said, you had control over everything.
Yep.
And the Shields guys told me, like, yeah, these guys aren't having a problem getting it. I'm like, that's because they have control, unlike these other companies. So that really helped. Everybody's like, I guess I'm going to try this out.
The only thing that slowed us down during COVID was the ports of entry. Otherwise, we were manufacturing product, we were shipping product. It was getting to our warehouse, and we've got a warehouse in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was getting product right out the doors to the dealers, to the customers. We didn't have an issue then.
Yeah, I look back and say, man, I have aligned myself with the right companies because Seaguar was able to do that. St. Croix was able to do that. Z-Man was able to do that. I'm like, these are all theoretically kind of American-made products in a sense. That's like, and they have full control and can get it out. And every one of the places, that's what was on the shelves versus everybody.
All those companies you name are great companies, and they manufacture their own product. They don't rely on somebody else to manufacture it. I personally feel like the companies that got in trouble are the ones that rely on third parties, because those third party companies, everybody was trying to buy product from them. All the product was produced and shipped at the same time and then flooded the market, and then they couldn't sell it.
Yep. Yeah. Now they're all digging themselves out of that in a sense, I would say politely. So I gotta throw the Wiley X in there as well. They're manufacturing their own, their own shade. So all good companies that you and I have, we've been fortunate to spend some time with down in Louisiana, chasing the reds and other stuff. And man, they got to get that thing going again. The Marsh Madness, that's second to none. Speaking of that, I actually have another podcast coming up, recording it here later today with Lou and Chris Horton. So
fun.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking a little bit about the southern fishing and the Gulf, of course.
Yeah, that's top-notch fishing down there.
Yeah, it's hard to beat. And you got the products made for it, Tactex, this, we didn't really talk about it much, but that's a hell of a place to be using this stuff.
Absolutely.
This weed ripping serrated line is that's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of people really thought about that and the use of it. We got a lot more weed growth on the river this year than I've ever seen, mainly because of the zebra mussels. The water's cleaner. It's getting more sunlight. We're getting better vegetation. Well, those freaking fish love the weeds. Walleyes and perch, especially, are up in there in the pike. And throwing those Z-Man jerk shads, I want to get them just into it a little bit, but then pop them through. And that's kind of we like to fish it real aggressive. And yep, Tactex was perfect for it.
Yeah, so that Tactex is one of our newer braids, and it's unique because it's a camouflage color, and it's greens and tan, so it blends in with the water really good. But it's a 4-strand braid, so it's got a little bit of a textured feel to it, so it can cut through that vegetation better, more so than a smoother, thinner diameter product.
Yeah, you can tell this one's braid when you pick it up. You
Yeah,
you feel this
yeah,
one, you're like, oh yeah, that's what a braid feels like.
yeah.
But it does it. Oops, the leader it comes with the leader material in there too. But
It does.
yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
definitely you can feel it, and you're like just that little bit of texture. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
completely. When I first cast with it, I hooked in, and it ended up being a carp, but it was big, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, a lot of times these things are going to wrap you up and stuff, and then your lines. You see the bass guys bringing up a largemouth with 5 pounds of weeds on it.
Yeah.
And I was afraid, oh, this thing's going to wrap me around stuff, but it literally was cutting a lot of those, new weeds as it pulled me
Mm-hmm.
through. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and those bonuses, those comes with the leader material in the box.
It does. It does. So the thought process behind that was so many anglers out there are buying braided line and using fluorocarbon with it, fluorocarbon for leaders. So why not include fluorocarbon with the braid purchase? So, you're ready from the start.
Yeah, you pull this out of the box in the boat or in the garage when you're getting ready to go. You're set. You're all set up, good to go.
Yep.
No need to. I do carry about half a dozen of these in the boat,
Yes.
or more than that, but in all, the different sizes and just keep. And what I love about them is the size, these 25 meters, I think you have them 25 yards, 22.9 meters. That's perfect. You don't need a big, bulky, we carry enough crap in our boats. If there's more storage space, we just fill it up, so a lot of guys will leave them in the totes in their truck or whatever, but I can throw, 6, 7 of these in my glove box in different sizes.
And you know what? You bring that up, and I wish I had a sample here. This year, we launched line management bags, line and leader management bags. If you look out there in the marketplace, manufacturer Z-Man, they've got all these storage solutions for their products. We wanted to offer the same thing for our product. You brought up Mark Daniels, and he has what he calls the tub of life, which is essentially a big plastic tub that's got all of his Seaguar product in it. And it's like, there's got to be a better way to store this. So we came out with a bag designed for our bulk 1,000 yard spools that will accommodate 6 spools of bulk fluorocarbon. And then it's got a shoulder strap. It's got compartments where you can store things. It's even got grommets on it so you can feed your line through it and spool. In addition to that, we came out with leader management storage bags.
Perfect.
So we've got one designed for like the small spools like Ice X, or the lower pound test gold label. So you can put multiple spools in there and just pull out what you need, keep it stored nice and neat, and it's readily available. We've got a medium size that'll hold 3 of our regular size spools of line, and then a jumbo that'll hold 6 of our regular 200 yard spools, or the 25 yard spools, 50 yard spools of leader material. Those are available now. You can also find them at seaguar.com.
Yeah, I've seen those. I think those were some of the promotions that were recently out there. I'm like, I don't have one of those. I got to get one of those things because I need it.
They're relatively new. I want to say they became available in October. So they're getting shipped out. They're getting out into the marketplace right now.
I know the Z-Man bags. I have a couple of those, and yeah, it's super slick. When I can open up my box with all the plastics, I'm like, oh, I just pull the Z-Man bag out. And I'm like, there we go. Everything I need.
Or you open up, a box of your boat, and it's like you're trying to find 8-pound test, and it's like you have to dig through there. But now you've got everything stored together in this nice bag. It's easier to find that bag and pull it out. There's all your material, or you just leave it in your glove box. There's all your material if you need to downsize, upsize.
Yeah, I leave mine I pull it out, and then I leave a little bit out, and then when I close it, and then when I need more, I just I strip it out, but. There's a lot of it. The man have a big glove box, fortunately, but glove box also get all shaken around. And you open up and you're like, where's my keys? And then I'm like, oh, there's line. Which I need. I'm 15, 8, 10. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, if I just had a little bag, I could just reach up where I keep those items and just be like, there we go, snip.
Yeah.
Yeah, way handy and free up space other places. Because you got to be organized. If you're a good angler, you're efficient, you're clean and organized. If you're not, doesn't mean you're not a good angler, but I guarantee you the best ones are pretty organized.
And leader material, that's something that regardless you're going to be going through over the course of a day fishing, over the course of 5 days fishing. So, it's good to have it available.
Yeah, it is. Quick and easy access to it is important, because if you're not going through it, you're probably not on them, is my guess. So you're
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
or fishing around the right stuff. It's like, well, I didn't lose a bait all day. And I'm like, you probably weren't fishing in the right area. I mean, well, I didn't catch nothing either. I'm like, that's why.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're catching 20, 30 fish, you're putting some wear and tear on, no matter what it is you're using. But all right, well, check this out, folks. If you haven't, the PEX8, the stuff it's just awesome. You're going to fall in love with it right away. But big fan of the Smackdown, and I'll report back later on. I'm going to, so it doesn't, it's 219 yards, I think it says. The thin diameter, I could damn near get all that on a 2000 series reel, but I have, so probably 20, 30 yards, like left over. And that's what I'm going to throw some of that out on ice reel and check it out.
Good plan.
Just try it. I think, especially in the river, because I got current, so it's not pulling my jig halfway down the stream. Ice fishing in the river is interesting, because you drill one hole here, and you put your transducer, your mega live, whatever it is, and then you drill over here a couple 3 feet, and that's where you fish, because your jig is getting pulled downstream. So now you're watching it over here. But hopefully I can slide that in a little closer. Usually just a couple feet is all you really need. But when you start fishing 30 feet deep,
there's a little drift.
There's a little bit of drift there. I don't care where you are, almost. So, but it's a huge difference. I've been preaching that for a long time. Rivers, you need thinner diameter line, and you're going to feel everything that much better. And when you can get a super thin diameter line and not lose any sensitivity and strength, what more do you want? Yeah, it's total win. What more do you want out of it, guys? It just doesn't get any better than that. So, all right, with that, I think people just learn more than they'll ever, Brian's forgot more about fluorocarbon than most of us even know at this point. So it's a good little rundown on it. You got a huge pro staff of bass guys and some walleye guys out there now. I don't think there's any MLF or Bass Elite series you're watching and you're not hearing about it, or over half of that field is running Seaguar, more or less. I mean, that's just a testament of there's a reason why.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up Jay Shakura. At that time, he wasn't even he was buying that on his own. He wasn't even a Seaguar pro staffer at that time. But there's a lot of guys just like that are fishing our products that either they're not sponsored by us or sponsored by somebody else.
Right.
Still
he's still putting it on. Going, hey, this is we're talking, winning and losing. This is, it's like I said, number one thing that connects you to the fish. Seaguar.
That is true. That is true.
That's overlooked, underestimated, but should never be overlooked, and certainly shouldn't be underestimated and should be talked about a lot more. So there's a ton of different, you guys got a great page on your website on knots. A lot of the pros teaching you different knots. So people head over to seaguar.com. I'll drop links in here below and just learn how to tie some of those knots, especially the braid to leader knots. I get that question asked all the time. There's several different ways to do it. I'm an Alberto knot guy or Uni, right? It's quick. It's easy. I very seldom ever break that knot. FG knot's great, but I don't have 10 minutes. And Mark Daniels, the master, the fastest tied FG knot guy in the world. But I have to do that in a controlled environment, like with a YouTube video or Mark's video to show me how, and in the garage. And I got to use my mouth and my foot, and and it's right. Pull it tight, doing this. I'm like, wow, this is a great knot, but But like anything, practice makes perfect. But head over there, check that out. It's cool. You got a lot of video.
Yeah, we also have a line selection guide on our website at seaguar.com. So that's to aid consumers in selecting a product that fits their needs. So they can choose, fresh or salt water. It kind of walks them through a path. It's, a simple question, and it gives you 2 answers, and it keeps narrowing it down. So it's like, do you fish freshwater, saltwater? Are you fishing a spinning reel, conventional reel? Are you looking for braid or fluoro? And it just keeps walking you down. And then at the end, after a few questions, it'll present you with 3 options, kind of a good, better, best, and the attributes about each one. So the consumer can make a decision based on what their needs are, what their wants are. So it's a unique piece that we offer to help people find what they need.
That's brilliant, because you get to the fishing line aisle in a box store, you're like, whoa,
Yep.
you know, there's a ton of it. And what's the difference if there ain't somebody standing around there? And nowadays, the consumer's going to pull up his phone. They're doing the research before they even go to the store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they haven't already bought it, you know, direct from the website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, walk it right down, and then minimize the options. Three's plenty. People get overwhelmed with options is the problem, you know. And I mean, there's always going to be I just am grabbing the cheap stuff, but once again,
or that's all they had, you know.
Right? Yeah, this is what they had. But once again, the cheap stuff, it's your fishing line. This is what connects you to the fish. You know. I used to the kids' fishing poles, young, and they come with some 4-pound mono on it. The first thing I would do is rip all that off immediately.
Yeah, that stuff just snapped.
Yeah, just pull that off. This is, you know, mass produced, cheap, whatever. It comes on your Barbie pole, whatever the case is. So be it. But first thing, dads, moms, just take that off. Go buy something else. Put it on. You don't need the kids' first fishing experience. Grant, maybe they're catching bluegills or panfish, whatever it is, but don't let it break. And then they're getting frustrated because they got a mess all the time.
Yeah, and then you're getting frustrated because you're cleaning that mess up.
Yeah. Just, you know, you can go out and buy a small spool of something for less than $10, put it on there, and you're going to be good. And the kid's going to have a better experience. You're going to have a better experience because you're not having to finagle with that stuff. So
all about making it fun.
Yep, exactly. You got to keep them engaged and keep it fun. So, all right, Brian, you're a busy man. I know you probably got 400 emails and phone calls to make today. So we appreciate your time jumping on here. Anything to leave with the listeners? Any tips, any fishing line tips we haven't covered?
No, I mean, we covered a lot today. Be happy to join in again and, you know, talk about some new topics. You know, for the listeners, you know, they can check us out at seaguar.com. We're also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Fish Seaguar. So I'd encourage people to follow us there.
All right. You heard it from the man himself. Nobody knows the line inside and out better than Mr. Brian Evans. So thanks for your time, and thank all you for tuning in and listening to this episode of Real Talk Fishing. And stay safe, and we'll see you on the ice.
A little bit about some high performance products that I use, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it too. It's the Seaguar Smackdown braid. There's 3 things about this thin diameter braid that I just absolutely love. 1, it's tough as nails. 2, longest casting, smoothest braid I've ever used. The 8-strand braid, tubular form, just comes off those reels super smooth, long cast. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It's awesome. And 3, it's super sensitive. No matter what kind of lure or jig I'm throwing out there, I can tell. I've grass, weeds, rocks, sand bottom. I can feel it all right through there into my rod. The stuff is extremely sensitive. So Smackdown comes in 2 colors, high vis and stealth gray. Get yourself some of this stuff, and you're going to get yourself some more of these. Check them out at seaguar.com.